Alright, welcome back to another segment of the Camo Cook. Today we're going to do another one of my venison recipes. It's another little piece of meat that not a lot of people save or they just chop up into stew meat or whatever. I'm going to do venison osso bucco, which is basically venison shank. Now, venison shank or venison osso bucco is a really tough cut. It comes from the calf muscle and lower thigh of the deer. Same thing with your veal shanks and your pork shanks. So the only way to cook it is to cook it for a really long time. So tonight I'm going to do about a 5-hour braise on it, and I'm going to show you a recipe that I like doing for it. I hope you like this one. Now when you have your venison chopped up, I do all my own processing. I don't take it in, so I cut all these cuts myself. So this would be pretty much what you're looking at. This, if you can think of the calf muscle of the deer and the lower thigh muscle. Like I said, it's really tough, so you got to cook it for a long time. There's a lot of tendons that run through these. So, okay. What I'm going to do first is start out, I'm going to chop a bunch of vegetables. I got a nice big deep roasting pan. So I chopped up one yellow onion, just a rough chop, nothing fancy. It's going to get cooked down. Carrots. Might as well use, we got some baby carrots around and that saves me some chopping, so I'm going to throw some carrots in the bottom of that. Chopped celery. Once again, just roughly chopped. You don't need it pretty because it's just in there for flavor. You won't get the crispness of the vegetable, so it's no real worry on how big or how small you chop them. And I got some chopped garlic here. Most of the time I'll use whole garlic cloves, but right now this is all I have is the chopped garlic. So and I add a bunch of that chopped garlic to it. Remember, venison likes garlic, so you can go heavy on it. And then, now that I got that in there, I'm going to layer my venison osso bucco over the top of it. Let's make a nice bed of vegetables. I got 4 of them. There's 4 on each deer, so yeah, you got 4. So at least one deer could feed a family of 4 with this recipe. Take some more vegetables here. Put it up over the top of it. So you got vegetables totally surrounding it. Some chicken broth. I got some pre-packaged chicken stock. Just put a bunch of that over there. I like to use chicken and beef in mine. Just adds, build that flavors. Yes, you got chicken and it's going into beef, but that's right. Now you can also go through and add, I like to add tomatoes into mine, but unfortunately my wife is allergic to tomatoes, so that probably wouldn't be the best idea to put any tomatoes into it. So, but otherwise normally you can add something like that. It just kind of builds onto the flavors. And the next thing I like to add, whole black peppercorns. Now you don't want to use them already ground. You can use the whole ones. They're going to cook down for a long time. Just in there for some flavor. Now when you use chicken bouillon cubes or chicken stock, a lot of the times there's a lot of sodium in it, and so you usually don't have to put too much salt in there. But what I'm going to do, I got some fresh sea salt, so I'm going to put a little bit of fresh sea salt in it. Just a little bit. Like I said, there's a lot of sodium in your beef bouillons and your chicken bouillons, especially if you use the dried cubes. There's a lot of it in there, and you don't really need it. And then you're going to add just a little bit more water because you want to have enough water to totally cover up the venison osso bucco, or at least almost all the way. What I'm going to do here is add just a little more water. You want to add it just till it starts getting most of the way covered. Now remember, the vegetables are going to cook down and these things are going to settle into the vegetables a little more. So if you have them sticking out of the water a little bit, that's fine. I got some fresh basil that I just cut off my plant, so I'll throw a little bit of that in there. Sprinkle a little bit of dried thyme through there. Some rosemary. Much as you want for fresh herbs. And of course you gotta add a little bit of red wine. Can't cook anything without wine. Everything's better with a little vino. I'm using a Malbec for this one, but really any red wine will work. I'm going to turn this here, and we're going to want to cover this with aluminum foil. Make sure you seal it up really good, that way it seals in all the juices, all the stocks, and all the flavor. And I'm going to set my oven to 275. No sense in preheating it because, well, this is going to be cooking for a long time in there, so it can preheat as it goes in. No sense in wasting a little bit of energy. Take it, put it in your oven on a center rack, and just let it sit, let it cook through the afternoon, just kind of like it's in a slow cooker. You only got it set at 275. The osso bucco is going to sit there, it's going to steam up and all those vegetables and all that broth. And hopefully by dinner time, it's 1 o'clock right now, hopefully by dinner time we should be good to go. Check back with you in a couple hours. I got a couple more steps for you. Okay, considering this is going to be a 6-hour braise, at about halfway through, say 3 hours, 4 hours through, you're going to want to start cutting up some, what I use is red potatoes, or you can small cut up some russet potatoes. A little bit more carrots, a little bit more celery to add to the mix. We're going to pull it out of the oven. Like I said, just about halfway through, so you're going to want 3.5, 4.5 hours. And I'm going to add these vegetables to it. The reason I wait for halfway through is so they don't overcook and they turn into mush and generally don't become good anymore. At least not the eater for mashed potatoes or something. You want to keep the potatoes pretty whole yet. So I'm going to spread those out throughout the dish. And then I take a little bit more of the carrots, a little more of the celery. That way you have some of them that actually have some crunch or some texture to them, because the stuff we put in there originally at first is going to cook down into mush. And it's not going to be, it'll be tasty, but I like to have a little fresher bite to my vegetables. Okay. Then we're going to throw the foil back onto it, re-wrap it up. And put it back down in the oven. And bake for the rest of the 6 hours. And I figure there's probably about a half an hour left for it to be cooked, maybe about 45 minutes. So when you get to about that point, pull it on out of the oven. And we're going to want to take off the aluminum foil. Now we're going to be putting it back in there for another half hour or so, but we really want the bones and the meat and the vegetables to just really roast now and condense the flavors down a little more. So we'll uncover it, stick back in the oven here. Be very careful not to spill it on yourself. I'm also going to turn the temperature up on my oven. I'm going to go up to about 325 just for the final cooking time. And now we'll get to work on the sauce. I got just a small saucepan here. I'm going to turn that down into a medium-low heat. And I got some cube butter to put into it. I will just put that cube butter into the saucepan just to get it melting, getting it softened up. Okay, when you get that good and melted there, I'm going to take just some all-purpose flour. Now you want equal parts weight butter to flour. But usually I just mix it in a little bit at a time, just till I get to the right consistency, which is going to be, I don't know, kind of thick. kind of crumbly, but still moist enough to form up. Make sure all the flour is dissolved into it. Make sure just kind of get to where it's not too wet. A little more. Don't need the heat on for this anymore. So you get it to where it's just kind of crumbly, but still really moist and not dry. All the flour is getting absorbed on the side. That'll be good right there. Now what I do is I go down here into my roasting pan. Get some of these out of the way here a little bit. I'm going to take some of this braising liquid, which is the stock made from all the vegetables and the flavor of the meat and the chicken stock and the red wine, and a mixture of all my ingredients that I've been cooking in for the past 4 hours, 5 hours, into a pan there. Put this guy back down into his home. And you can put that back into there. That braising liquid is what we're going to be using to make the gravy to go over the top of our osso bucco. So it's going to be all the flavors combined into one sauce. So you don't have to worry about the juice or anything else. You'll have the gravy with all that flavor into it. And so we're going to take a roux that we just got done making, and we're going to thicken up our stock with it. So you want to take our braising liquid, put it on high, get that heating up, bring it up to a boil. Now you want to season your braising liquid to taste, obviously, as you're bringing it up to boil. Make sure you give it a try. Make sure it doesn't, you don't want any more seasoning. Make sure it's salty enough. Make sure it's, because the potatoes that are in the recipe have a tendency to really soak up sodium, so you want to make sure that, you know, your flavors are adjusted appropriately. Nope, that's perfect. That'll work just fine right there. So I'm going to bring this up to a boil. Okay, now that I've got her kind of at a slow boil, that's about all you need. I'm going to start just crumbling slowly the roux that we made into it. You might not use all of it, but it's always good to make a little bit more. And you just want to keep whisking it. Do not stop whisking it. As you crumble it in really slowly, it'll start to absorb and it'll start to thicken. And the butter and flour really adds to the flavor of it. You want to just get it to the right consistency, mix through kind of so it'll stick to the back of a spoon. Make sure to keep whisking until all the flour is all out, and you can tell there's not going to be any chunks or lumps or anything like that. And just check to see how thick it is. Stick into the back of the spoon. That'll be good. Now you just want to throw a cover on that, set it off to the side. It should stay warm for a little while. The osso bucco only has about another 15 minutes or so when it's done. And we'll pull it out, check it over, see if it's good. Alright, you can see how it's nicely roasted. Just starting to peel apart. That's perfect right there. Take out some of these yummy roasted vegetables, your onions, carrots, celery, whatever other veggies you put in there. A couple of these roasted red potatoes. Oh, and look at that. Put a little of our homemade venison gravy over the top of that. Some other vegetables. And that's what you got, venison osso bucco. Hope that gives you another little choice of what to do with your deer this year. When you go into the butcher, if you have yours processed, just tell them you want some osso bucco cuts. you get 4 of them per deer, unless you got a 3-legged deer, then you only get 3. But give it a try next time. Hope you enjoyed this recipe. See us next time on the Camo Cook, and don't forget to stop by our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/pages/camocook. Give us a like, and see you next time.